right, welcome back. So this is the first time we have started the show tonight.
Mulligan.
Yeah, Mulligan. One per season, everybody. One per season. One per show per season. So we're still good. All right. First of all, welcome everybody. Please sound off in the chat immediately and let us know if you are able to hear both myself and
TJ, me. That's me.
Yes. Are you able to hear both of us? Because that would really assist in the podcast format of our show. If you are able to hear both of the hosts' voices.
Boom. Got us. All right.
All right. Boom. Awesome. Okay. So this is going to be our, okay, cool. This is going to be, again, our episode 5 of Planet Hero, review of episode 4 of WandaVision. We interrupt this program. Now, I'm sorry for the interruption of our program, but we are back now. So, TJ, why don't you go ahead and hit the IMDb again on this so that we can go ahead and start discussing again.
As you just said, we interrupt this program. Season 1, episode 4 came out Friday. Which, what's today, 30th, so 29th? Yep. 34 minutes, more like 27. Credits are like 6 minutes. Description: Monica Rambeau, tasked with a special assignment regarding sentient weapons, goes missing. Director Matt Shackman. Does he direct all of them?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Writers: Jack Schaefer, created by Bobak, S. Farjani, I think it is, Megan McDonnell, and Cameron Squires. Starring Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, Catherine Hahn, Tiana Paris, Randall Park, Kat Dennings, and quick cameo from Deborah Jo Rupp. So, with that, do you want to give us your initial opinions on the episode?
Yeah, I mean, initial opinions, definitely. I love this episode. I think it is trending in a great direction for the show. I think, you know, the Marvel fans who have been looking for that traditional Marvel feel, Marvel formula, I think you're there now. I think the first 3 episodes were definitely meant to kind of introduce you to this whole concept. Got a little bit weirder, a little bit weirder until finally kind of, if you want to say, they broke the fourth wall of the WandaVision sitcom, but not of the show. At the end of last week's episode, and then this week it just builds upon that even further. Really, if you watch this, you would think it no different than a regular MCU movie. It's really very, very similar. Yeah. So what are your thoughts, initial thoughts on this episode?
As I was saying before, we were rudely interrupted by whatever
technology
problems we were having. I really liked the episode. I just wish I wanted more. Now this isn't me saying, oh, I wish I could just binge it, because I still like the whole idea of being able to talk about it week to week instead of watching it all at once. Like I said, it really wraps nicely together what we've seen in the first 3 episodes and how we got to this point. Basically, channeling, showing Monica's journey to how she got to the end of episode 3. And that's basically how it leaves the episode. I thought everybody was great. I thought there was some cool, some cool characters they brought back. But I just wanted like more out of it. Like, I didn't want it to end the way it did. I wished it was a little bit longer. I think I said it to you in the beginning, like, I thought he said that every episode was going to get longer, and so far they're like the exact same length.
I think what it is I think what he meant was like the first couple are going to be, you know, shorter. But I mean, this one was, technically this one was the longest because it was like the other episodes were like 21 minutes without credits. So I mean, it is a little bit longer, but I think it's going to be even longer going forward, and I think we're in store for, you know, a couple 45-minute, you know, season finale ers. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe the last 2 episodes, maybe the last 3 episodes.
But yeah, like I said, everything was good. I just wished it didn't end like how it ends all the other episodes, where it was like them sitting on the couch at the end. But other than that, I thought it was really good. I actually didn't know, because Danielle was like, "Oh, that's Kat Dennings." I was like, "Who?" And she was like, "Oh, like Two Broke Girls." I was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah." No, like I didn't know. Well, I asked Danielle. I was like, "Oh, is she in any?" I didn't know who she was in the MCU.
Oh, really?
I've seen Dark World, and she's in both.
Yeah,
two,
she's in.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've seen those once, like a long time ago. Like I don't remember them at all. So she was like Natalie Portman's assistant, right?
Yeah, she was like Natalie Portman's assistant and like friend, basically.
Gotcha. All right, and then Jimmy Woo, I don't remember at all.
From Ant-Man? Oh, that's right. I forgot. You don't care
again,
for the
I'm not a
Ant-Man
big
movies,
Ant-Man guy, but
you got to change that tune, man.
Ugh,
Quantumania.
I know, we're gonna see a lot more of him.
Oh yeah, Quantumania, man. Scott Lang's just getting started.
I know. So what do you want to dive in first, do you think?
Oh man, let's dive right into. So first of all, I'll throw it up on the screen. Boo, boo, spoiler. Yeah. I'm not gonna have it up on the screen the whole episode, just because basically from here on out it will be a spoiler review. As we say every week, these are spoiler reviews. We did kind of a non-spoiler introduction here of about 5 minutes, which we don't even normally do. We normally dive right into spoilers, but I think just the way we were talking, we kind of kept it light. But from here on out, it will be full spoilers. I can't imagine anybody's watching this if they haven't, because this video is called a full in-depth review. So yeah. Let's just start right off with the very opening scene. I will say right now, as soon as I saw the dust, I didn't even put two and two together.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. I was like, what is happening? And then I was oh right, that whole thing with like those two Avengers movies happened. And then I was like, oh my god! And I was actually telling my roommate Brianna, who I will say, she does not watch Star Wars stuff, does not watch Marvel stuff or anything. She is watching this every week, and she is very interested to find out what is going on. So take that as a non-comic book, non-Marvel fan at all. She's very interested, very confused. But very interested. Yeah. I showed her the 2 episodes of Marvel Legends to get her caught up on, Wanda and Vision.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and she actually remembered Jimmy Woo because she saw Ant-Man 2 in theaters with like her family or something back when it came out. But yeah, so take that for what it's worth for somebody who's not in on all this stuff, is enjoying it as well. As soon as this started, I told Brianna, I said, I was like, I'm so glad that we got a serious look at the blip, at the returning, because in Far From Home we got a huge look at the blip and people coming back and how that all works. But I'm not going to say all of it was, but like most of it was played for comedy in Far From Home. This was very much like this gave me very much like Walking Dead vibes. Like imagine if Rick had woken up, but imagine if, kind of that vibe.
No, I know what you mean.
Like what the hell is going on? Like I've been in a coma for 5 years in Rick's case, but in this case it's like it just goes to show you that it's like everybody that got blipped, like they had no idea. Like they had no idea. Like as you can see here, Monica's like, I took like a 20-minute nap. Like what do you like what do you mean? And I think it goes back to actually a deleted line from Endgame, which I think would have made this scene make a little bit more sense for people with, because kind of in Endgame you don't really get the sense that everybody was actually, I would say you get the opposite sense when, people like T'Challa come through and it's like he looks at Cap like we're here now. We've got the, what I mean? But there was a deleted line when Spider-Man first sees Tony again, and he's basically like, it was crazy. We were just on that planet and I got all dusty and like everybody and what he was like, what's in your hair, Mr. Stark? And he's like, it's gray hair. It's gray hair. It's like so that line, I wish they had left it in because that gives a very good impression of they had no idea. They're back and they're just like, what? Like they think it's been 1 second. Now obviously Monica was asleep when she got snapped, and then she was asleep when she came back. So that's a bit of a different story. But like people, you imagine like people like Star-Lord, people like Drax and stuff,
Yeah.
Peter Parker, they're just like what the hell just happened? I was just right here.
Yeah, I was originally confused at first because she said that because she goes up to the doctor and she's sleeping in, if you don't know, if you didn't watch it, she's sleeping in a hospital chair, the chair that you're sleeping in when you have somebody in the hospital and you're waiting there and you've been there for 10 hours, blah blah blah. She wakes up and her mom's gone. And she runs out and is trying to find for somebody, and as Sean said, the entire hospital is in like chaos, kind of like Walking Dead or something like that.
Yeah.
Where or even like March 2020 pandemic, everybody's running around trying to get all these groceries and everything like that. She runs into this doctor and is like, "Where's my mom?" She gives her the name. What's her name again? I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names. Not Monica's mom's name.
Maria Rambeau.
Maria.
Who, for those who don't know,
Maria Rambeau
from Captain Marvel.
And the doctor's like, she died from cancer like 3 years ago. And she's like, what? Like, how long has it been? And in my head, I'm like, because the snap was 5 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Or is that
5 years.
Endgame?
What do you mean?
Wait. Now I'm confused. Never mind.
Between snaps was 5 years.
Okay, 5 years.
Between Thanos' snap and Hulk's snap was 5 years.
Okay.
I mean, you are right, a little bit over 5 years because Thanos snaps in Wakanda, then Tony goes missing. So it's basically 5 years plus the time that Tony was missing.
Okay.
Plus the time that like Tony and Nebula were in space, which was what did
because she says that was like
40 days or something.
And I'm like,
so that's why it's implied that Maria lived for 2 years in the snap.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Duh. Okay, because that's what
later,
I was missing.
Later, there's a line where, they tell Monica, you're grounded, meaning, not grounded, like you're grounded, like he says, terrestrial missions only, and she's like, on whose idea was that? And he was like, it was your mother's. So clearly, Maria was still working at SWORD during the snap. So she sat in, those things. Because at first, when I first watched the episode, I did not pick up on that. When he said, it's your mother's policy, if any vanished personnel returns, they're strictly to terrestrial missions only until, a certain amount of time. We never find out how much time. But I was like, well, that's kind of convenient. But then I realized on second watch, I was like, oh, she lived through the snap. She knows what happened.
Right. Yes.
So I was like, okay, that makes more sense that she was able to be there and make all of these, rules and stuff like that for vanished personnel because she knew that everybody vanished. And then that also makes the line make a little bit more sense where he's like, hey, there's a silver lining in this. It means your mother, had confidence that you guys might come back someday. And it's kind of cool to know that, her mother's, one of her mother's best friends was the one that actually helped bring everybody back. But yeah, so I'll say this. I just want to talk about SWORD a little bit. I hope, on one hand, everybody's talking about, oh God, I hope Wonder Woman 3 is set in modern day. I'm sick of the flashbacks and stuff. I actually hope Captain Marvel 2 is set. Obviously, it's going to be set now. We know that. But I actually hope that there are flashbacks with her and Maria Rambeau to kind of flesh out that character.
That'd be cool.
I want to see maybe Carol, maybe she has some involvement in SWORD. But then again, I don't know, because then it's like, oh man, it's tough. I'm really trying to struggle to remember everything that they say in Captain Marvel. Is the pager at the end of Infinity War the very first time Carol has come back ever since the 90s? Or do we not really know?
What do you mean come back?
Like to Earth.
Oh, I don't think we know. Honestly, you'd think I'd seen a movie 3 to 4 times. You'd think I know the answer.
Yeah.
Because I
don't know.
seen
I
Captain
don't even
Marvel
know
like
if they
the most.
I don't even know if they've given us an answer.
I'm not sure. So since she left at the end of Captain Marvel to present day. Has she been back since? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like have her and Maria ever interacted?
Yeah,
again.
I don't think they ever. I don't think they say that at all.
Yeah, like that I would like to see that kind of answered in Captain Marvel 2. I don't want the whole movie set in flashback, which we already know it's not, because we know Monica Rambeau is going to be in Captain Marvel 2. We know that Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, is going to be in Captain Marvel 2, so we know there is going to be present day storytelling in it. But I just would also like to see that kind of story wrapped up.
Yeah.
Because, it's kind of abruptly severed at the end of Captain Marvel with her going to space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to go on to the next thing,
next,
which
scene.
is so that's then we talked a little bit about it, just kind of referencing it, but the next scene is, Monica goes back to Sword headquarters, which basically the lobby of the Sword headquarters looks exactly like the Triskelion from Winter Soldier. It looks exactly like it, just with a different giant logo in the lobby.
Can we quickly talk about that? The asshole that was sitting at the front desk.
Oh yeah, he's like yeah, her past. That? So first of all, this is 3 weeks after half of the population of the universe came back into existence, and Monica, she tries her badge at the door
to get into Sword.
Get into Sword, and first of all, obviously Monica is some high up ranking thing, so it's like at Sword, and her pass doesn't work. And he goes, ma'am, come here, let me see that. And she goes, oh, I work here. And he goes, well, if you worked here, your badge would work,
pass
wouldn't it?
Work, wouldn't it?
It's like, whoa, hey, first of all, do you know who her mother is? Like,
exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, who is this guy? Like, what is this?
I was like, oh, is he gonna be like some like foe? And it's just he was an asshole.
Yeah, it was just some random asshole. Like, it was it. Let's
obviously
talk about this other random asshole.
Okay.
No, not no random asshole yet. We don't know if he's an asshole.
Tyler Hayward. Sorry.
Yeah, Tyler Hayward. So who is now I think they said acting head of Sword. I'm of two minds on him. I really hope Marvel does not just go the stereotypical villain route and be like,
that's what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah,
like screams villain.
Yeah, but I hope that that's a subversion. I really hope that it is, because it's like, how many times have we seen that in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., in the Cap movies, where it's like, oh, but you didn't know I was working with Mephisto the whole time. You know what I mean?
Ooh,
like that's, or maybe, I mean, if they go a crazy route and say that like Tyler is Mephisto, I don't think they're going to do that. But like,
no,
if
because
they go crazy like that,
he seems like a nice guy. you have to know what's going on in
the world, in
Westport.
WandaVision.
Yeah. So I feel like he's not. I mean, he could be a villain, but I don't think he'd be working with Mephisto or is Mephisto.
Yeah.
But maybe he's just really good at playing dumb. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
So
I think he's just kind of a brass tacks a-hole kind of boss. I think that's it. I think obviously he has lived through the snap, so he's probably hardened, from that. Because you can see when he's with Monica, he's very light. He's very, kind of joking with her and stuff. But then when he's working with his subordinates, when he's working with Jimmy, that kind of, he's even nice to Jimmy, actually. Because when Jimmy's like, I got to tell you, sir, I don't have confidence in this mission. Tyler's kind of like, oh, if only my drones were as forthcoming. You know what I mean? Like I don't think he's a villain. I just really hope he's not a villain. I just don't do that standard trope again. You know what I mean? In another form.
He's more, I would say he's more nice to Monica because he knows that he took her job, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, she was gone, but
I feel like that's villainous enough. Like, you don't have to push it any further than that. Like, it's not his fault, but at the same time, it's kind of a crappy situation. But then it's like, well, what's he going to do? Step down? For what reason?
No, exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's it called? Yeah, again, Michelle in chat says, kind of the same thing with Yon-Rogg, with Jude Law and Captain Marvel. It's like, and then it's like, he's supposed to be the good guy, but then it's like, oh, he's the villain. And it's like, oh, okay.
I couldn't stand Jude Law in that movie. Sorry. I saw it 3 times too. I don't know why I saw it 3 times, but I did. And Jude Law, man, if he said Veers,
listen to me, Veers.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, shut up, Jesus. So, Monica gets to the sword, and she's talking to Tyler Hayward, and he's like, "Oh well, if you ever they came up with this policy, if you ever come back, like you're stuck on Earth, like you can't go to space and do any of these other missions," which basically is how she ends up with Jimmy Woo in the outside of West Point.
Westview, New Jersey.
Westview, sorry.
Yeah.
Is it West Point or Westview?
Westview.
Westview.
Point is
I
the
keep saying
military
West Point for some reason.
That's the military school.
Gotcha. So basically, she's driving cross country, or where are they actually? Not cross country. New York City?
I don't know.
Safe to assume?
It just said sword headquarters, so I mean, it could be anywhere really. Maybe DC. I don't know. Not too far.
Fast forward
it didn't seem.
Yeah. Fast forward her driving to Westview. You see Jimmy Woo, and then you see two cops. And she is told by Tyler Hayward that this is a missing persons case. So getting to this scene, what did you think of the interaction? What did you think of the cops? Were they like, you think, how do you think this magic works?
First of all, I got to talk about the other magic in this scene, which is my boy Jimmy Woo finally nailed the card trick that he's been working on for 7 years. It took him the whole blip to work on that card. Okay, that's a quick question for you. Do you think Jimmy Woo got blipped or no? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No. I think that both Jimmy Woo and Darcy, they both seem way too confident to have just recently come back from being disappeared for 5 years. Does that make sense? I feel I feel like those two characters definitely did not get blipped.
I would agree with that.
Because I just think they have I don't even know if confidence is the word. They just have they're the way that they're written. You know what I mean? There's no additional hint of sadness that it's like, all right, well, like it's like I said, everybody just seems kind of hardened that lived through that. But yeah, so Jimmy Woo, he finally nailed the card trick, pulled it right out of his sleeve. I think the cops were, it's like, I don't even know. I think it's just one of those things where Wanda is so focused on the Vision thing, on just making this perfect life for her and Vision. Vision is all she cares about with this. I think she just did a very simple, reality warp spell, whatever you want to call it, that she does. That just said, if anybody asks about Westview, it doesn't exist. It's plausible deniability. Like, she just did the most simple thing to divert as little power to it as possible. And then in terms of the cops disappearing, I think they just drove into it and, did the little, getting sucked in just like
so you think they
just
drove
like the
into
drones
it?
do. I think that they're from there. I think that the cops, can drive in and drive out.
Gotcha.
But they just keep, what's it called? They just
I didn't go back and watch it, so if they did drive, if they drove away, then I just didn't.
Because they drove towards the town, and then Jimmy and Monica are talking over here, and then they turn back around, and the cops are gone.
And they're gone.
So I just assume that they go in, and then if Wanda is like, oh, somebody's at the edge of town, send the cops out and be, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. Because I mean, if it was not a sword agent or an FBI agent, it probably wouldn't make sense that if somebody was just like saw two cops and they were just like, nope, turn around, like you just would, you know what I mean, like so yeah, I think that's kind of how that works. And then of course, once you see the drone, which is the whole reason Monica's there, is that the FBI has requested the use of one of Sword's imaging drones, which basically looks like a little toy helicopter. Which, as soon as she pulled it out of the thing, I was like, okay, so that's the helicopter that we saw in episode 2. And it makes sense why that was colored now, because it's like, it's what do you want to call it? As we have on this show on Planet Hero, as we've kind of, what do I want to say? Theorized about before, when things cross that barrier, they get transformed into something that fits. This episode confirms that completely many times, multiple times. Specifically about everything that we talked about. I think in our episode 3 of Planet Hero, we talked extensively about our thoughts on the Beekeeper, and that is very much delved into in this episode. I think it's one of those things where it's like, whatever spell of making things look right was working so hard to make this futuristic, drone fit in that it kind of was like, all right, it's one or the other, bro. I can make this black and white, or I can make it fit the time period. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. I think it was like, Wanda, you are not giving enough, you are not diverting enough energy to this right now.
Okay.
So I think that made
I
a lot
get
of
behind
sense.
that why there's still color. I could get that.
Yeah, I just think it's because we've seen the times where there were things in the two black and white episodes, the times where things were color was when she was slipping. Same with Herb with the hedge trimmers. It's when Wanda is kind of slipping up. You know what I mean? She's not focused completely.
Yeah.
And now, definitely, now that we know through this episode exactly what her and Monica were doing inside the house, now it makes even more sense how weird Herb was acting, because it's like she went full Scarlet Witch in this episode. She went full evil Scarlet Witch, which we will get to.
And then shortly after, the helicopter drone disappears into the force. I don't even know what you want to call it. Pixelated dome type.
I'd say
structure.
the barrier, like
barrier.
Yeah.
Monica kind of walks up to it, and it kind of like pulls her in, and that's basically how she ends up in the reality.
Yeah, and then let's skip forward a little bit. We are reintroduced after. Jesus, I can't even imagine. This is crazy for us watching. I can't even imagine for Kat Dennings. We're reintroduced to Darcy Lewis after an 8-year absence from the MCU, which is like crazy. I can't even imagine her when she got that call. You know what I mean? Hey, we're bringing Darcy back. What?
Yeah. What?
Like, she did the entirety of Two Broke Girls between Darcy appearances. So yeah, we just kind of get a cool scene, just kind of reintroducing the audience to her. Her kind of quippy, she's from that early stage of the MCU where it was quips aplenty. Which I think, it kind of shows a lot of character progression in her, honestly. She went from, she used to call, Mjolnir, like, meow meow, like, because she couldn't pronounce it. So she would just be like, there was this scene where, like, Thor, like, flies by or something, and then Mjolnir flies by, and she goes, Thor, meow meow. It's like she seems very older and more headstrong, I would say.
Her character was very funny, introducing her basically back in the back of the truck.
Absolutely.
Where she's like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you? And the first guy she asks, he's like, we were told not to say anything to each other. Like, we're not supposed to tell each other what. And she was like, okay. And then she asked the other two people. And then I think he's like, oh, actually, I'm a physicist, engine, whatever. And she's like, well, I already
Nobody
asked
cares.
You said you didn't want to tell me. Nobody cares.
She's like, nobody cares.
Which I thought was funny.
And then, as Michelle in the chat's pointing out, she is Dr. Darcy Lewis now. Another reason that I'm thinking that she probably was not blipped. Because in our time, it's been 8 years since we've seen her. In her time, it's been almost 15 years. It's been almost 13 years since since the events of Thor: The Dark World in universe.
I'd say it's safe to assume that everybody we see and all the main characters have not been blipped, in my opinion. Other than, I guess Monica was, but like Jimmy Woo and
unless we are shown it, I think, or told it specifically, I think we can assume that they were not.
Yeah. So where are we after that? So they get off the truck, they arrive at they've already set up a base outside of the false reality that Wanda has set up. And
I just love that little joke in itself that it just says 24 hours later, and there's like a whole city. Yeah. Like, it's like, that's the most, like, I know it's Sword now, but like, that's the most S.H.I.E.L.D. thing ever. Like, in 24 hours, they've set up this like 3,000 man crew and like a little tent city to observe something, just like they did with Thor's hammer.
One of the things that I think Danielle also found it really funny, or found it funny, it was like so small, and it probably wasn't even meant to be funny. But when she's like pulling that big thing up onto the desk, and there's a guy standing right next to her, and she like lifts it up, she's like, ugh! And then she puts on this, she goes, thanks. And, like, because he didn't help her. Like, I just thought that was funny. But like I said, her and Jimmy Woo have very good chemistry, I feel like, throughout this episode.
Oh, absolutely.
Trying to figure out, and they're basically acting as the audience as well, because you know they're both like, what is going on? And there's the higher up saying, well, what's going on? They're like, I don't know, I know as much as you do. So after they get off the truck, where are we at this point? I'm trying to think. Or she's figuring out the TV, right?
Yeah, so basically
Okay.
she goes, they're kind of talking her way over to her desk all the way through.
Yeah.
And then basically she's like, "Can I get a cup of coffee?" And the guy's like, "Just make your analysis." Like,
Yeah.
she basically, reads it. There's this big thing about these cosmic radiations, which, we'll talk. We don't even have to talk about this episode. I'm sure they'll come back. But that has ties to Fantastic Four, about talking about radiation in New Jersey when we're about to get Ms. Marvel, who, her powers are awakened from within her through radiation, who lives in New Jersey. It's probably going to set up, a whole bunch more things. Could have to do with the Eternals too, a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because and also, not to mention the fact, Tyler even says it's cosmic radiation dating back to the Big Bang. In Doctor Strange, we find out, well, the Big Bang is what sent the Infinity Stones out throughout the universe. So everything's kind of connected with that cosmic radiation. And then she realizes that there's longer waveforms on top of it, pulls up the TV, and that's when she
Not a flat
discovers,
screen TV. It has to be an old TV.
Yeah, not flat.
States. Not flat.
And then that's when she kind of realizes, that this WandaVision sitcom thing is happening. And then basically the rest of the episode, which we could kind of, skip forward a little bit here.
Yeah.
The rest of the episode is just kind of them trying to establish communication. You see, the different times that, you see the other side of him trying to communicate through the radio. You see that the show that we have seen that the show is being censored by Wanda in it, but we actually see that there are even moments that we have not seen that were censored.
Oh yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that especially with this the end of this episode with her and Monica, we see even more. What's it called? We see even more on the end of this.
Angles?
Even more exactly. Yeah, we see even more angles to this.
I thought it was also cool that when they show them like in the whole big camp, like watching the different. They have like 10 different TVs spread across this little base that they're in. I thought it was cool that there's scenes that weren't in the episode playing on the televisions.
Like, yeah, like things that we didn't even get to see.
Yeah, like Monica's sitting on the bench and she's talking
and her and Agnes are like outside the library. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. But I think so. Basically, this is leading into as they're seeing all these people, all these characters on the TVs. They're trying to piece together who all these people are, and they start gathering the actual identities of people like Agnes and Deborah Jo Rupp's character, and who else? Next Door Neighbor. Norm. A lot of Norm, yeah, and what's her name? The one that's like really mean. Dottie.
Yeah.
Her too.
They do not find they actually don't find an ID for Dottie. Dottie and Agnes are the only two that they don't find an ID for.
No, so except for Dottie and Agnes, and obviously Wanda and Vision, those are, we're assuming, real people, right? They're obviously real people who have just kind of been stuck in this reality, I guess. So now that interests me because we have an ID for Herb, right?
Yeah.
But in the third episode, you see Agnes talking to Herb like he knows what's going on. Do you know what I mean? So like, did she tell him, or is he aware?
I think what it is, I think they all know. I think they all know. Okay. They just can't say anything to Vision. I think it's specifically they can't say anything to Vision. That's her one thing, is that she's trying to keep everything in line for Vision. That's it. I think more what it is that Herb's a real person and Agnes is pretending to be a real person to Herb.
Okay.
That's what I think. And then, so now we get, like we said, they've been doing this research and stuff into everything, trying to communicate. So now let's talk about the whiteboard scene. So right now, I'm just going to read what can be seen.
Okay.
So you see at the top of the screen, it says, but it's kind of cut off, but I assume that's relegated to Westview, 5 mile radius, small town. And then it says who is doing this or who has done this or something. And then it says extraterrestrials, parentheses, Skrulls, question mark. Which we know, obviously, that's probably Skrulls are, huge at sword, having being found probably, I would have to assume Maria Rambeau, Nick Fury, and maybe Talos, maybe Ben Mendelsohn also had a hand in forming sword. As some kind of a human Skrull, collaboration project, which I'm sure will get fleshed out even more in Secret Invasion, which, by the way, Clark Gregg, Phil Coulson, apparently has been cast in that, not confirmed by Disney. Probably won't be confirmed for a while, but apparently Phil Coulson will be in that, who obviously has dealt with Talos and Nick Fury many times.
Yeah.
And was in Captain Marvel. Then we have at the top right, it says what we don't know. And this is where Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige is just toying with the audience completely, just making fun of all of our theories, including this show. Number one, why the hexagonal shape? So why has everything come back to that hexagon? Why is it all, a hexagon shape? And it says why sitcoms? Same time and space. So basically, they're basically saying, is this some kind of an extra dimensional thing or extraterrestrial thing, or is it actually happening inside Westview?
Correct. Yeah.
And then the big one is Vision alive, because that's one of the things that is heavily talked about. Is that Darcy says, she says, I know it's been a crazy few years on this planet, but like, oh yeah, so that would show me right there that both of them didn't get blipped. Because anybody blipped would not know that Vision died.
Now, so Danielle actually brought up a good point, because when she's watching the TV, Vision appears as a human. Now, has she ever seen him in the human form? And I was like, well, I've only seen him as a human form when he's with Wanda in Infinity War. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. I never really thought about that. Because nobody would have ever seen him as a human, correct? Because she's like, isn't he supposed to be dead?
I don't know, because...
But I told her...
You know what? I bet you're absolutely right. You and Danielle are both absolutely right.
Danielle, I didn't say that. I was I just kind of like,
I think she's right that it has not been shown on screen, but you got to remember the government, that whole group of Avengers, including Sam, Black Widow, Cap, Wanda, Vision, they were all on the run after Civil War for 2 years.
Right.
Their pictures were everywhere. I would assume that if the government knew that Vision had a human form, they would say he could look like this, he could look like this. You know what I mean? I'm sure they showed both. That's just my kind of headcanon explanation.
I was like, or she's been watching it for 5 minutes before it shows her watching it, and she sees him transform at some point.
Yeah. Not even just that, but also, I mean, he doesn't really look that different.
No, yeah, he looks.
And it's
he looks very similar.
He's with, his known. I guess they would know him girlfriend or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And she calls him Vision. Oh yeah,
Correct.
She calls him Vision.
Oh, she did
all the time.
Oh yeah.
In the show, she calls him Vision like a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably what it is. But yeah. Okay, so then she says, "Is Vision alive?" Now let's skip forward a bit. Then we get a great scene of the Beekeeper. Where we show exactly what we said on this show a couple episodes. We were like, it must be something that when you cross that barrier, you're transformed into something that fits that time.
The time period. So when he crawls, so basically the theory is they don't think that this force field type thing
goes
extends
underground.
Yeah. So they have the guy, the whatever guy, the hazmat suit guy, because that's what he's dressed up in, as a hazmat suit, basically, go through the sewers and try to tunnel into Westview. So basically, as he has like this like chain hooked up to him, so if they need to, they could like pull him out. Basically, what happens is when he crosses the force, whatever, it changes his rope into a jump rope, and it falls
So it
off.
falls
So
off of him.
basically,
Yeah.
So basically, they're like reeling him. They think they're reeling him back in, I think, and it comes up as a jump rope, and they're like, "Uh-oh." So it follows
This isn't a
him
man.
up, up the sewer, and he has a bee suit on. And I think this is the second creepiest shot of the episode. I think you know what the first one is. Is
Yeah, I think so.
basically he comes up out of the sewer just like is it the first episode?
Yeah. Second.
And second episode, and you see Wanda and Vision like where they're standing in front of their house, and you just hear her say no. And I don't actually what happens after that. I know what happens in the actual episode, but what happens in this episode?
Nothing. It just cuts away.
It just
Absolutely
cuts away.
nothing
Okay.
happens. Yep. That's almost creepier to me. Is that literally nothing happens.
Yeah, I thought that was creepy. And then obviously we'll get into what the first creepiest maybe of the entire show.
Creepiest maybe of the entire MCU.
Yeah, it was very so that was interesting to see how that works, and it kind of again proves, I feel like a lot of people's theory is that's what happens when you enter into the
barrier.
So after that, where are we?
So I think we can go forward to the end with her and Monica, because they're kind of watching the show. It's now the 70s. They see the twins being born. This is Darcy and Jimmy.
Oh, well, actually, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
We kind of skipped over Jimmy Woo and Kat Dennings. They try to contact Wanda through the whole radio. Yeah. Obviously, it kind of works, but not really. You can visibly see they're watching the actual episode on the TV. That Wanda gets very flustered at that moment, but it kind of, nothing really comes of it. So as you were saying, continue.
Yeah. So then after that, we basically see, we see them watching the birth of the twins, and then we see them watching the moment where Monica says he was killed by Ultron, right? And they're like, wait, have they ever referenced our reality before? And they're like, no, never. And then basically all of a sudden you hear the alarms that say barrier has been breached. And then basically they run off. And then this is where we get treated to a scene that we did not see before. This is kind of filling in the gap of last episode when Vision runs back into the house, and he's got his all floppy 70s hair, and he runs back into the house, and he turns back to regular Vision, and he's like, Wanda, what's going on? And Wanda's standing over the crib, and Vision looks just normal Vision, and she's like, oh, he's like, where's Geraldine? And she's like, oh, she had to go, she had to run home. Which is right after Agnes told Vision that she doesn't have a home, so already Vision is like, well, wait, what? But he doesn't even question it out loud. And then we find out what really happened, which is Wanda goes full, complete Scarlet Witch. She goes full supervillain on Monica, and basically goes, "You're not my neighbor, and you're definitely not my friend." And she goes full movie visual effect Scarlet Witch and does and whips Monica through the walls like 700 yards. I don't even know how much, and shoots her straight out of the barrier.
Which I was thinking of the layout of the house, and I was like, wouldn't they technically see her fly by? Because they're in the front yard, and she gets pushed out the front, doesn't she?
Yeah. So I was like, that's what I thought. Well, I think maybe they're trying to say that it was like the side of the house, but the way that, but also I guess you could apply sitcom logic and say, kind of, if you look at sitcom houses, they never make sense. Like the house on Full House doesn't make any sense at all, like how it's laid out. So maybe you could just say it like that. But I thought about that too. I was like, well, wait, but she goes the same direction that Vision walks out the door. And the door is on the front of their house. So
Michelle said she was pushed out next to the kitchen. So I don't know. I have to go back and watch it.
No, she was pushed out. She was pushed out towards the nursery. She goes through the nursery. Yeah, that's the front of the house. Wanda's standing with the kitchen behind her. what's it called?
But whatever.
But yeah, either way, it doesn't make sense, and I think it's okay that it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And
So
then, do we want to talk about when the husband of the house comes back?
oh yeah, let's talk about that.
Yikes. So,
Do you have an image?
I do have an image. We're gonna pull this image up. Everybody, just be warned. It's a frightening image. All right, hang on. That is us many times. That is not the image yet. Don't worry.
All I know is that actually like I kind of jumped a little bit. I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
okay.
I don't like this.
So then, like I said in the last episode, you know, Vision runs into the house. He turns from his 70s form back into his regular, you know, purple and green form. And he's like, where's Geraldine? What's going on? And then we see from Wanda's perspective.
Just so you know, the image is not on the screen.
I know.
Just so
I know.
Okay.
We see now from Wanda's perspective.
Yeah.
You know, we don't see Vision right away. We just hear him come in and see him in the background, not in focus. And then basically he says the same things, and she's like, "Well, she had to run home." And then when she turns around, we basically see
They're gonna do a pop up,
which is one of the most terrifying things. In the entire MCU. Let me just give a nice zoom in there.
Oh God,
that is
brutal.
Vision's dead corpse being puppeted around by Wanda, which is something that we have said on this show that we're like, so it's definitely like his dead corpse, right? That she's like masquerading around.
That's what a lot of people had that question of what happened to his body.
Yeah, well, there it is.
Was crushed.
There it is.
And there was like some I saw something, I think it was on Twitter, where somebody like took this interview. I think it was post Endgame. You know how like
of the deleted
people
scene?
do those. No, people do those like 20 questions like on those different YouTube channels. Like and there was one with the Russo brothers.
Oh,
and
yeah,
there was a tweet that was like, "Oh, what happened to Vision's body?" And they were like, "Oh, that's another story for another day, I guess."
Yeah.
So I think this is probably what happened to it.
Yeah, it must be.
Unless you might be able to explain it as just a glitch where she's seeing what he actually. Oh, I guess no. That would no.
No,
yeah.
I think it was. Yeah, because that's. I think the Vision we are seeing is literally her marionetting around. Or maybe not. I don't think she's controlling every body movement, but I think she gave life in this reality to the corpse.
Yeah.
And she basically makes sure that he looks normal. So I think it was a glitch. I think it was a glitch for her that she was like, because she looks disgusted. She's like, oh, and he's like, what is it? And like, he's completely dead. And then she's like, no, nothing. And then she looks back and he's completely normal again.
Yeah.
And then basically they, you know, like you said, they, like we see at the end of most episodes, they go back to sitting down on the couch, and then basically the episode ends. But before it ends, we get one last shot of basically what Monica says to Jimmy after she comes out of the barrier, which is basically she says, "It's Wanda. It's all Wanda." So now, basically, just like the end of the last episode was like, all right, we're getting to see the real world now. Now it's, okay, the real world is no longer saying, is this Skrulls? Is this, is this that? They now know this is Wanda doing this. It's no longer who is doing this to you, Wanda. It's why is Wanda doing this to everyone in there?
Yeah. I think it's still safe to assume that there's still some overarching villain in there that's not making her do these things, obviously, because I feel like obviously we can see that it's.
I think it's somebody like taking advantage of the situation.
Yeah, to do what though? Like we haven't seen.
Well, that's
anybody...
what we don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I have a quote. When do we think? So I was just thinking this. When, and we obviously know he's going to be in the show because he's casted. When do we think we see Evan Peters?
I don't know. Not until the.
I mean, obviously, we don't. Again, we don't really know what's going on. Like, we don't know what's coming next, considering it ended with them just sitting on the couch. But like, I find it so hard to believe that he doesn't come as Quicksilver. You know, like does
Yeah.
she reimagine her dead brother as, but it's just Evan Peters instead of Aaron Taylor Johnson? I don't know. Oh my god. Now,
Trying
do
to
you think they're
find
going down? I've heard a lot of people say that this is kind of them going down the Young Avengers route. Would you agree with that?
with their kids.
Yeah,
I don't even. I mean, it's hard to say because it's like, are the kids even real?
yeah, okay, that's
Like,
fair.
you know what I
Because
mean?
isn't
It's
it like
like,
doesn't Doctor Strange deliver her kids in the comics? I've heard that. Is that true?
he doesn't deliver them, but he's he's always kind of integral with her. But
Okay,
no, he doesn't deliver the kids himself.
gotcha.
Um,
Huh.
I'm trying to find. Oh man, I wish that I could just pull up Disney Plus.
Hmm.
But basically, the look that I want to talk about it, that I want to close out the show with,
Yeah.
is when Wanda, you know, he goes up to Wanda Vision and says, is this our home? Like, does it have to be? And
Hmm.
she's like, this is our home now. And he's like, is it? And she's like, of course. And then she's like, now what do you want to watch what do you want to watch on the TV? And then she walks past him, and Vision kind of goes like he kind of has a moment where
Yeah.
he's like something is not right here
Hmm.
at all. Like he
That's
looks at
weird
her
that he
almost
would.
he looks at her like almost.
Yeah.
I have it pulled up here. I wish I could show you guys, but Disney Plus,
Hmm.
obviously with copyright, I can't show it on the screen. He literally looks like disgusted at her. If
Hmm.
not disgusted, I would say concerned. And then it fades, and then he just goes, and he like walks
Yeah.
over to her and sits down on the couch. I think it's
Yeah.
one of those things that he is absolutely starting to, realize something is wrong, something
Yeah.
is not making
It's
sense.
weird that he'd be able to have one, that he's dead, obviously.
Mhm.
So it's weird that he'd be able to have these thoughts while he's being controlled by her, because he's not a thing. He's dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's weird to think that he'd have separate thoughts from what she's making him think.
Yeah,
But,
and yet
yeah.
clearly he does,
Yeah.
which is very, very interesting. I don't know how. I think that's part of the mystery, is that we're gonna have to try to figure that out. Is if she is kind of puppeting him to.
Mhm.
That's why I think it's less puppeting and more she took the corpse and did something to give him
Mhm.
life. Maybe she made a deal with Agnes to
Maybe,
maybe
yeah.
Agnes was like, hey, I could we could set this whole thing up where you envision, you guys could just chill out, live your days together. And then maybe
Yeah.
what it is that it's just maybe one of those oldest comic book trope in the book of, Agnes is just trying to steal Scarlet Witch's power.
Mhm.
Which is,
That could be
totally
it, that
possible.
that she has made a deal.
Yeah. To get Vision
I
back,
never thought about
basically.
that. Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
well, it looks like Wanda's doing all this, but it's really
Mhm.
not, you know?
Yeah.
And that would still support the idea that,
Or maybe
you
Wanda,
don't belong here.
what about
type
this?
thing.
Let's close out on this theory. So we're
Okay.
almost at an hour.
Yeah.
Let's close out on this theory. What if Wanda doesn't even know that all these people are real? What if Wanda doesn't even know that? What if she just thinks, I made this deal to live in this perfect, happy little fantasy, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Geraldine, you're trespassing in it. I don't know who you are. Get out of here. But she's like, Herb's my guy. Let me, like, Norm, Dottie, all these people are great. Like, she thinks they're all just like constructs in this made up reality. Maybe she doesn't even know that they are real people. That's maybe something too, that's a way to be like, okay, Wanda's not just like a murderous psychopath. You know what I mean? Like, not yet, at least, because I think she probably will get there. Eventually, she probably some genocide in her future.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but not yet. Not in this show, I don't think. But eventually. So yeah, I think we'll close it out on that. Do you have any other theories or anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't touched on before we head out?
No, I feel like we touched on everything. I don't think we're missing anything.
Boom. Yeah, so I mean that will do it. I think for Planet Hero episode 5 review of WandaVision episode 4. We interrupt this program again. We're sorry for the interruption to our program with the technical difficulties, but I think it ended up being a pretty good show. So yeah, with that, as always, my name is Sean Monk. Twitter handle is right down there at Pace Eating Yak. You can go ahead and follow me. You can follow us, the show, on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. At Planet Film Pod, as well as you can get us on all of our social medias in our All My Links page, which is in the bio of pretty much all of our social medias, as well as on our YouTube channel. So do you want to give your Twitter and close us out?
Yeah, I'm TJ Cornwall, Twitter down here, TJ_Cornwall. And we'll see you on Tuesday, 8 p.m. for Planet Film Pod. We're reviewing Dog Day Afternoon.
Oh yeah.
Al Pacino film from 70s, I want to say.
Yeah.
So catch us for that, and maybe like a little bit, tiny bit of news, and then we'll be back with WandaVision episode 5 review next Saturday.
Yeah, same Saturday, next Saturday.
Take care. We'll see you on Tuesday. Peace.
Boom. And always remember, vision is a walking corpse.